Good afternoon. I am Anto Budiarjo. Welcome to Monday Live. This is something that we do every Monday afternoon to try and figure out the future for smarter buildings. It's really good to have you with us today. In case you're wondering who we are listed on mondaylive.org. And also just to point out that views expressed here are personal, not of any company or organization. Let's keep that in mind. And let's make use of that Zoom chat today and every week to make it as interactive as we can. And if you want anything from the slide deck, it is on mondaylive.org. This being the first Monday of May of a new month, we're starting a new theme, and our theme here is for this month is commercializing the vision. So really the sort of the thinking behind that is that we've been talking about really sort of big things over the past few months, ontologies, AIs, and other things like that. A lot of innovation kind of discussions, a lot of what can happen in the future. The idea is we need to bring it down to actually how do we realize that? How do we make all of that real? So that's the conversation today and this month. And obviously after our normal sort of news and trends. And today, if we're going to commercialize the vision, obviously it's important to know what the vision is. And what we're going to do today is we're just basically going to go around the room here, or around the panel, and give each of us an opportunity to share what we each think the vision is from our perspective. And we're also going to invite anybody else that's in the audience that want to chime in with their vision to put the hand up, and we can hear their perspective. So, and then we'll have a discussion about that. So hopefully this will be interesting. But before all of that, I'm going to hand it over to Ken. What's going on, Ken?
Well, as always, lots of stuff going on. Up in the top left-hand corner there, everyone is finding the amazing power of AI, and I think people are starting to demonstrate how it can be used, and I think that's excellent because I think we're all using different versions of it, and it's good to just. So if you actually click on that post, you can kind of see what our contributing editor has done there with the new Gemini Advanced Deep Research one. So there's every day there seems like there's a new version of a agent. So I think we have to follow that. I don't know if you caught Kimon's post this morning. He thinks we got to take all of this stuff to the analyst, which I think is another good direction. So make sure you take a read on that. Just by the way, that if you're not following me on LinkedIn, it's probably worthwhile because I'm just pouring through so much stuff, and I often just comment and I often reshare. So if you have any trouble like me just trying to keep up with what's going on, and then people send me stuff as well, the list is getting to be quite significant of just things that are flying by. Just below that, we have the Monday Live recap from last week, and I think that did a good job of recapping pretty much the whole month, which was great. So I think that was good. We did another post basically to kind of create a level above the Tagger team and probably shine some light on the importance of what the Tagger team is doing with semantics, to take a look at what international organizations are doing. And every time we kind of have to keep our thoughts that when we're moving this stuff, that there are a lot of moving pieces above us, and a lot of people are kind of in the same boat. They're trying to decide how they best can get their information, so it becomes more seamless, or easier to use anyway. And on that, Haystack is going on, I guess that's tomorrow in Washington, D.C. And following that, we've got Danielle there who's going to be speaking at uh, Realcomm in Savannah. And I believe that's also the Tiger team is going to be there tearing up the event. Is that correct? I think so. And we're also still supporting media sponsor of the Smart Buildings Show in London. If you're interested in being part of that, you should click on that and follow that through. The one below is an interesting one out of Italy. We have our automated buildings LinkedIn group online, and they posted on there, which anybody that belongs to that group. There's over 5,000 people belong to that group, and anybody that posts on there that belongs can post. And so that's how I came by that. And it's an interesting article. It's a research article, and it's got some good comments. At the bottom there, BIM heroes. I'm now a BIM hero. Who knew? Basically, we were trying to figure out how to do some cross-pollination between the BIM folks and automated buildings. And we talked about a media exchange, and so they invited us to join this BIM hero community. But inside of that became, as everything you touch these days, there's a learning process involved with it, and there's always an aha moment at the end. And as we started using this, it brings up a whole bunch of questions. And what they've done is they've actually created a community of BIM users and BIM practitioners and put them into a platform. And I'll call it, not sure that's quite the right word, but so when you join their group, you actually become part of their community, and you kind of get to see how their community is organized and how their community interacts and the resources they have. What goes on in my mind is that this becomes a building is definitely a community, and maybe this is something that we should be doing rather than creating websites for buildings. We should be creating communities, and maybe we can chat a little bit more about that in my vision. So that's back to you, Anto.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if that's your vision, then maybe we should go in that direction later on. Great.
Sure.
Rick, bit of an update on.
Yeah, I think that the Tiger team, as most of you know, the Tiger team was created to address the semantic normalization and some what we felt was like some confusion and or stagnation in the areas of what's going on with all these semantic efforts and these ontology efforts. And over the past few weeks, I think it's been getting, the conversations have been getting more and more focused around a couple of themes. And I think going into next week, those themes will be sort of established as digitization being one. That without digitization, we can't really talk about semantics or ontologies. So that's kind of like table stakes that everybody agreed on. We kind of came up with this, what we're using as a tagline called the journey to plug and play. Jory had we're going to come up with a more technical sounding title for that effort, but the tagline will be the journey to plug and play. And then the ultimate, the ultimate goal is to be able to show how more standardization around semantics and ontologies will allow for better creation of software. And so the composability aspect is another key thing that we're seeing everybody sort of rally around. So as the themes emerge, the digitization, the journey to plug and play, and then the ultimate sort of the why of why do semantics and ontologies matter? Well, it's so that software can be more interoperable and more effective. And that it's kind of really cool to see the Tiger team coming together around those things, and then the different companies and the different projects are going to have the opportunity to put that all into their own words and kind of write parallel papers. All this stuff is, the goal is to have it be sort of revealable at Realcomm in Savannah, in that sort of time frame. And then again, the spin out of it, we've already started to identify other working groups for C4SB that'll be the result of this, sort of industry clarification process. And so I feel like there's, and geez, we had another, 24, 26 people in this call. There's been always over 20 people. And again, for those of you who are participating, we really appreciate it because I think it's moving the needle.
Great, thank you.
And your goal is to prepare for Realcomm Savannah?
We're using that as a stake in the ground of let's have some papers around these themes, some opinions, some case studies, some various different like I said, position papers from different vendors and or participants in the Realcomm timeframe. Yes.
Tracy, you have anything to add to that? Because you're on that group.
No, I think he's covered the main points on that. It's interesting for me to watch people sort of are very fluid. They kind of seem like they're leaning this direction about things, and then somebody really smart speaks up and makes a good point and kind of brings them all back in the other direction. So there was some question, I think, during the last call I saw watching the comments. Are we going to be able to have something ready in time? But then by the end of the call, I think all the comments seem to agree, oh yeah, we'll be able to pull this together. So I think it is. I thought all along that that's plenty of time for us to at least start the broad strokes of everything that we're trying to get accomplished here as we move this all forward.
Great, thank you. Phil is going very well as well, so it's great. The link board as always. Any other topics anybody want to bring up? Anything new? Hearing nothing. Okay, so commercializing the vision. So the whole idea here is we've been talking about all of these innovation and changes. So there must be a vision down the road, and we really need to start to think about how to make it work as a business for all of us in our different perspective, different angles. But what is the vision? So I think our visions are all likely a little bit different. So that's the intent today, is just to talk about that and to give all of us an opportunity to share what our visions are. So since I have the mic, I'll start, and it's actually an easy one because in a way we've been talking about it. Plug and play to me is the single most important thing that we can focus on. And plug and play has sort of very strange history as a term because it kind of got ruined by a lot of tech companies in the 90s. But the fundamentals of plug and play is really powerful. And it really speaks to what standardization is all about. And the way I'd prove that is that we all still use a standard today that is, I believe, 110 years old, 115 years old or thereabouts. And it is the whole notion of plug and play, and it's this thing. I can get the cable there. Is this thing, right?
See it.
That is a NEMA 115 standard.
Ah.
And for the past 100 years, we can plug this thing in the wall and things happen with zero configuration. Lights come on, refrigerators buzz, etc., etc.
But not if you're in Europe.
Well, in Europe, you have a slightly different plug, but the same concept applies. Right. So, if we think about buildings, there's a lot of things that actually need to be configured to work with each other, right? And they don't behave like this. So I think that's the most sort of powerful motivation for me, is that it really needs to be as powerful as being able to plug something into something else. Obviously not in the context of delivering 110 volts, but delivering information and data. So that's my vision.
So
Who wants to
Anto,
go next?
I have a question for you. Okay.
Okay.
So to realize the vision, do you feel like the work that's being done with Tiger Team is going to ultimately produce a straw man that expresses that vision?
Yes, I'm very confident that, and what Rick was sharing, that the group seems to be aligned with what I was saying. Not because I was saying it, but because that's just the group dynamics, right? So I think where this group is going, and sort of thinking about all of the pieces, all of them semantic pieces, so that can happen. Really, the way to think about that.
Right.
I can jump in and go next if
Go,
we're ready.
Tracy.
So coincidentally, or maybe not so much, I've been working on pulling together sort of a little vision paper on this very topic as part of our work with IBB and Tiger Team stuff. And my focus on this is sort of around the when I think of commercialization, the business end of all of this. And I kind of broke it into 4 different aspects. And I'll kind of quickly go down through those. So the first one is distribution. What does this world look like in terms of distribution when we've achieved this interoperable plug and play kind of world that we're talking about? And the biggest things here is, as an open source kind of cloud native framework, not intellectual property owned by a vendor, this really opens up distribution and availability in the market space for this. It really allows the owners to regain control over how they shop and where they buy and purchase their products, which kind of leads me directly into the second aspect of this. If you look at, so from a distribution standpoint, as a distributor, I like this kind of stuff. It was very similar when LAN first came out, and even BACnet to a great degree now, especially when you have open interoperability in the marketplace, it opens up the marketplace for procurement and for being able to have competitive bidding going on and so on and so forth. It's really good from a distribution standpoint there. There are no more lock-ins and licensing and territorial restrictions and so forth. This really makes it a better open marketplace for everybody. The flip side to that is the procurement side of it, which puts kind of the choice and flexibility and leverage back into the owner's hands when this all is realized out there, and kind of flips the script on everything, right? So owners will have the choice to procure from where they want to procure and for what reasons they want to procure. It could be service, it could be price, it could be location, it could be a previous relationship. All of that will be open and available going forward with this. All of that kind of kicks off life cycle costs. So what happens from a life cycle cost? Buildings can be 30 to 40-year assets easily. And interestingly, a lot of the work goes to the lowest bidder. And unfortunately, lots of times controls kind of come towards the end of that thought process of the value chain of what my building is going to look like. I always used to joke, the only contractor who has it worse than we do are landscaping contractors, right? They're sort of the literal icing on the cake, and they're the ones that come at the end of the chain and get cut because of value engineering or budget overruns or whatever. So this really opening it up like this changes the life cycle cost model of how all of this will come together. The owners will own their infrastructure. They won't be enslaved to a particular vendor. Think about when and I think somebody else gave good examples this week. I think it was Aaron in something that he wrote. But when it comes time for a replacement of a system, the benefits to the owners in a world with open interoperable like this are tremendous compared to where they are now. And all of that has to do with the fourth subject, which is kind of the ecosystem shift from the siloed hardware to, a much more open, innovative sort of marketplace, right? This is composability at scale. You pick and choose what you want in your system, from whom you want to purchase it from, and all of this stuff plays together nicely, shares the data, provides the data that you not only think you want now, but I would say we don't know what we don't know yet, so we don't know what we want going forward when the world opens up like this. So it's going to be a big ecosystem shift, I think, from that standpoint. And finally, in the end, the conclusion of all of this kind of is open wins. I mean, virtually every other vertical market where something like this has come to the forefront and has gone open wins. Interoperability pays, it's less expensive. And I think, the future of smart buildings in a world like this really kind of puts the keys back in the hands of the owners in all of this. And along the way, opens up new kinds of opportunities for the vendor community, kind of no matter where they are in the stack, in the solution stack. So just some groundwork on the business side of things, maybe.
Right. That's really good, Tracy.
That's
Thank you.
great. That was like 4 different visions, but all wrapped up in
Oh, yeah.
openness.
Yeah,
That's great.
it's all has to do really with the procurement. What happens when
Yeah.
procurement side of this is open, and it just impacts sort of how we do business in a couple of different ways. So
Great. Let's get another one. Who wants up? Anna's unmuted, so he must be ready.
No, Rick put his hand up. You can go.
Either way,
Go, Rick.
well, I'm kind of following up on what Tracy's describing, because my vision for our industry is that it becomes more of a technology-like industry, and that then changes business models. It changes changes a lot of things about the dynamics, and one of the key things that Tracy also said is that move more towards open systems and interoperability, because that's what owners want. So after years of being in the IT business on the commercial side of companies you've heard of, like Apple and Dell and Compaq and stuff, we realize that by giving the owners what they want in terms of interoperability, you're taking a risk as a vendor. You're really taking a risk that you'll get replaced by somebody else. But guess what? We learned how to win that game. So by making yourself part of it, giving owners a choice, you're taking a risk, but you're going to win if you do it better. And so by being more of a technology sort of business industry, and a technology-defined industry, owners will get what they want. And right now, they're articulating it really well. They want AI on everything. They want digital twins on everything. They want much more of an IT-ish experience for their real estate. And so we've got a lot of models for that. Good news is I'm working with this thing called the Linux Foundation, and that's what the Linux Foundation does, is provide an open path to that digitization, not just a digitization, but an open and interoperable path to the digitization. And so, okay, all this experience of the Linux Foundation that just happens to be articulating how to accomplish these digital transformations, and how for different industries to become more of technology-defined industries. And So we couldn't be in a better spot. But the vision is to become more, for our industry to stop thinking of itself as special and start realizing what owners want in terms of, more digital experience, and that's my vision.
So
Yeah.
are we special, like we take a different bus to school special, or are we special like we really, really know what we're doing?
Not supposed to tell people
Yeah.
that.
All right, Anna, you're next.
Sure. And from a commercial perspective, I love having Jim Lee on these calls because it always makes you think about, the why, who's going to pay for it? What's the reason behind it all? And you couple that with, in my business, at the end of the day, we are heavily centric on people and the people who execute the work and do the work within the buildings, whether that's maintenance or, repairs or, just servicing the buildings. And so our challenge, of course, is the cost of doing that, the effectiveness, the efficiency, the aging out problem, and all those sort of things that comes with it. So if you couple all that together, from my perspective, we as an industry in that context are not leveraging AI anywhere near, where the capabilities are. And it's kind of interesting in that the last week or so, I've been watching a lot of visionary leaders in the space and more the IT space. Folks like, in fact, there's a couple of links. One of my favorite ones at the moment is, him, what's his name, Demis Hassabis, who's the CEO of DeepMind that got acquired by Google, which is now the back end of Google's all AI stuff. If you haven't seen his stuff, you got to go listen to him for a while. And just listen to his vision of where AI is going and what he calls AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is kind of the next phases. Do some YouTubing and what on him, and I'll drop you a couple of links. And this just over the weekend, I was listening to, in fact, what's his name? Zuckerberg and Satya Nadella from Microsoft talking together on the stage about the impact of AI on people, right? And Satya was saying that they believe nearly 30% of their software at Microsoft is now written by AI. And that's significant, right? Which goes back to the whole mantra of it's not a person who's going to take over your job, it's a person using AI. So from from our perspective, in fact, this is the link to that one, and this is a good one if I can do this one. Can I copy this? I'll just do this. If you haven't met Demis, this guy's brilliant. Just look at his stuff. So from my perspective is we are not leveraging AI anywhere near what in our industry, anywhere near what a lot of the leading technologists are doing. From a impact on efficiency, people making them, do more. And I see that in our space all day long, right? And from my perspective, we're applying AI on anything and everything that moves. You name it, from cleaning to maintenance to operations to diagnostics to anything and everything that has people involved. How do we bring AI machine learning into that space? And how do we make them more effective? How do we reduce the grunt work that most of these folks are doing, which we shouldn't be doing? And if you go through what the promise of AI is, we're just scratching the surface within our space. When you look at what's happening with AI in other spaces, they are way far ahead of us. And again, when Microsoft talks about 30% of their software is now being written by AI. That's not true. Just think of the numbers involved in that, right? The numbers of people and their effectiveness. And so anyway, worth listening to if you want to hear some of the visionaries in that space. And like I said, I like Demis at the moment. He's one of my.
So think a lot of people are agreeing with you and nodding. What I'm not getting is because a vision is kind of a state sometime in the future that we're shooting at. What is that vision? You're talking about what we should be doing, but everybody's agreeing.
Yeah, the
How would
vision
how
of
would you
it.
characterize that?
Well, it's easy one in my space, right? In my space, and we have a simple metric, right? If I can make anywhere from 10 to 20% impact on my efficiency of my resources, the folks within the maintenance space, that's a huge amount, right? How do you make them 10 to 20% more efficient? And weirdly enough, that's not a hard task. It's really not hard to do that with AI and machine learning, right? Compared to what we're doing today. And
So your vision, if I can just sort of put it in a sentence, is efficiency from AI is really what you think we'll be able to extract efficiency out of
100%,
from using AI. Okay,
100%.
great.
Yeah, and I
Steve?
like Danielle's comment there, right? Is that the folks that we've got, how do you make them move them up the ladder, right? They shouldn't be looking at the fundamental stuff. They should add value to the equation.
I think if people can get past the nervousness and fear that has been kind of coupled with AI and start looking at it as a tool, just like, you know, autocorrect or word spelling, word check or any of the other tools over the years, or a calculator. I still remember thinking how a calculator seemed like I was cheating when I first got it. That's the same feeling I get when I use AI. And every time I go in, I learn something new. We're really just scratching the surface here. We're just barely scratching the surface.
Yeah. And you listen to these guys, when they're talking about where they're going. I mean, just to jump on the tailcoats of those guys and just do 10% of what they're doing is going to make a huge impact in our industry.
Yeah. It
Great.
took 3 years-ish, 4 years maybe, from Microsoft to get to 30%. Imagine what it's going to be 5 years from now.
Steve, you want to go next?
Sure. So having been, involved in our industry and trying to get data across different platforms and different systems, to me, the opportunity here is to affect it in a much more successful way. So we have all these different silos. The ones that the people who are on this screen here today have been primarily focused on building automation, which is fine. And we've, with BACnet in particular, we've been able to achieve a lot of interoperability among the different BACnet systems. But when I take the silo diagram that we've looked at multiple times now, Anto, it becomes a whole different ball of wax. And so for me, the vision or the opportunity to create the plug and play, to achieve the plug and play paradigm that you alluded to when we started this conversation, is where, for all these silos, is where I'd like this, is my vision for what has to be the outcome. So everyone, operating a computer today knows how to search for something, type in a URL, and get to information. So from a silo perspective, I think that's where we need to land, is that, I have an access control system. Bing, bing, bing. There it is. I have a fire life safety system. Bing, bing, bing. There it is. It should be no more difficult than that. And then, of course, there has to be a mechanism for the systems to talk independently without the user involved. That's, I know, part of the thinking of what Tiger Team is working on. But in terms of the sophistication of writing custom APIs to get all the different data formats to work with each other and to make the information understandable, we've got to do what seems to be the path that we're on right now with C4SB and the Tiger Team, to actually create a true plug and play or interoperable solution for the overall smart building industry that can be applied by the generation that's coming up with almost little or no skills. Because what does that do? That makes it possible for the first time for owners to really see what the hell's going on, and they can bring in virtually anybody to answer those questions. They have the ability now to, if they're having trouble with a vendor, they can quickly, bring somebody else to either work on that system or replace the system or expand the system with a competitive offering. Okay, so the owners now benefit greatly. The deployment of systems in the field, particularly for those where there is specified need for interoperability, now becomes much more affordable. It doesn't involve a lot of custom work to make all that data usable, and so that applications, particularly AI applications, can now have access to it. So, yeah, I think the path we're on is, if you will, the next. It's not just the next generation of what we've done with open protocols. It's much more than that. It really is looking to the IT industry that we use to execute our job, if you will, without getting into the controls side of things. But just the Zoom call, the Word documents we send, the emails we send, the time we spend going on the internet to look up this, that, or the other thing, all of that experience, we can't really apply that easily into our own stuff. Okay. And that's my vision, is that because the learning curve that we each go through to learn how to, find a website, connect to the website, is nothing. You can teach it to 6-year-old. So that's what gets me excited, is that we're actually thinking in those terms of bringing IT mechanisms, if you will, that are proven, that are easy to learn, easy to adopt, and can then be deployed against any of the silos in our industry. That's exciting.
So I sort of wrote that down as no more barriers from silos. That kind of framing.
Sure.
You're speaking to the fact that the barriers of the silos would have gone away, is your vision.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the barriers go
Great.
away. Yep.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Jim?
I think our point this month is to go towards how do we commercialize this stuff. So I'm going to talk about the tactical first and then move to the vision. The tactical is, as Anno said, we're basically using AI in our businesses wherever we can. The place where we've had the most traction in our business so far is sales and marketing. The tools and the automation are phenomenal and contributing massively. We are looking at auto writing some code, although we don't write huge amounts of code. We do a lot of technical work, but code is, dump trucks full of code is not going to help us as much in what we do. Also, other areas where AI can make a large difference in our analytics business in terms of mapping and making models. Now to the vision piece. The industry has fought for years over how IT would impinge us. And for years, our thesis was that IT was going to come and take over this area and become responsible for OT. And, 10 years into that process, it's pretty clear now they ain't coming. And in order to get the value that the convergence between OT and IT brings, we need to be the leaders in that because we have more to gain than they do. And I think that the IBB and the C4SB Linux Foundation process give us a chance as an industry to show that vision and leadership and basically frame for IT how these things are going to work together and how these value propositions are going to be uncovered. So what I'm looking forward to is using the knowledge that we have as an industry, and frankly, we know quite a bit about IT as well as OT, that we can actually be at the nucleus of driving that convergence. For my own business, I'm particularly interested in cybersecurity, and there will be many AI elements involved in threat detection, other things with AI. But it's actually how that information gets used and what intercourse OT and IT have in the future. And the interesting vision is being present at the creation to frame that. Because we really can't expect the IT people to have that vision because they really don't know what we do.
So Rick earlier said we should be more tech-like, and Jim is basically pushing that to say we should be IT. We are the IT angle of
Yeah.
buildings.
We need to tell general IT how to do this, how to unlock this value. And of course, hopefully we can all be in the eye of that storm when we do it and figure out how to turn a buck.
Good. Great. Thank you. So Ken,
Okay,
what's your vision?
my vision, I think, is what I've always been trying to do is trying to pull this ragged, tagged industry together. And I think we're actually, we just keep going on and on. So we moved our model to allow our sponsors to, and contributing editors to express themselves. And that was a big movement forward. And now we're starting to see communities as platforms. And that kind of thinking, I think, is going to evolve, that every building is certainly a collection of community. And what you guys are all doing is you're all working on the pieces of the community to bring it together. And I think we need to start thinking about how that happens, sort of a Tagger team approach to how is this going to be displayed? How is it going to connect the refrigeration contractor? How is it going to connect the cleaning contractor? How is that all going to come? And is there going to be some standard informations? And can it actually be built by an agent, an AI agent? And because there are some similarities in it, and everybody always points out that our buildings are snowflakes, but they're all created from pieces of snow. And I think those pieces of snow have to fit into, be rapidly assembled for each building, complete with a community that comes with the people that actually support that building, the contractors, and they're all there when you click on it. And so an agent can actually look at that building and even compare it to another building. So it's kind of that next level that is evolving. And I think what's happening now is we've got some folks coming in that almost are bringing virtual silos with them. And I think we have to try and catch their attention and show them some of the work we're doing underneath to try and just try and keep that thinking open as well. So just trying to make it so you could actually ask AI to assemble the team for such and such a building, and it would give it a list of things, and you can probably use a frame from another building, but the people have to understand that their offering has to be just like the Tagger team. Ontologies need to be of a standard. They have to have a standard format of how they're going to do that in software terms. Not sure, it's a hazy vision, but I think that would be nice, is to try and get, so you could almost automatically build the top and have it assemble its community virtually.
So buildings as communities, which is really another way of talking about collaboration between all of the entities, people, AI, and other entities that have something to do with that building. Everything from janitorial to the architect to the CEO.
Yeah, and then the whole social
Everything.
social side, I think, is a big thing, is what's on the menu for the restaurant in the building, what events are being planned. That whole social side actually may be the driving force for that. And again, a connection of all of that to community, which may in fact affect the operation of the building. If there's a party barbecue on the deck tonight, we have to leave the deck lights on and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because that building is the building that is being utilized by that community, that same community. So it makes sense to think about the whole thing as an entity.
And the other thing we have is we have more and more, we have people interacting with the building virtually that may or may not ever be there. And so they may be able to extract a sense of community from this virtualization.
Right. All right. Anybody in the audience wants to say something? I can bring them into this conversation. Kim on. I'm just going to press this button. Where is Kim on? There you are. I'm going to press the allow to talk. Okay. Kim on.
Hello. Yeah, just a couple of thoughts that kind of feeds off of what everybody else said too. I think there's two things. One is obviously the standardization is important and what's been going on the entire team on semantics and ontology. But one thing that came up that was interesting that everybody agreed was oversimplifying it. There was a post made about, do we even really need semantics and ontology now with AI being able to filter through and clean things up? It's an interesting concept. But it was oversimplified. That's, I think, the consensus we came to. But the other thing is, the first thing I think before all that is just making the data accessible, regardless of what format. And now with AI, it's actually opened up a lot of other ways to get to information, including just converting audio to data files. And we've been experimenting with that quite a while too. How can you create a BIM from just an audio file, for example? So that in that scenario, semantics and ontology would be really important. But if it doesn't exist, as long as you can get to something and process it, especially with AI taking over more of the coding, like the Microsoft discussion, we're going to start automating a lot of that more to the point that you don't need to have everything. It just needs to be accessible, in other words. The other thing I've been kind of toying around with for quite a while is because AI is starting to approach human, and as it starts getting more and more intelligent, we're starting to treat it more like a person. And because that is happening, I think we even have to think about how do we analyze AI's thinking, which goes more into kind of the psychology realm, which was my post this morning too. We need to start thinking about AI as, even though it's not a person, how is it actually interacting with us when we start asking it these complex questions? So it's not just a technology issue, it's also just a humanity issue. How do we think like it is so we can actually guide it to think better or to go the right direction? And that's a kind of an interesting angle, I think. If we kind of marry it with the technology, then we start having real conversations. If we only focus on the technology, then it becomes just we're memorizing the multiplication tables instead of using that calculator, like Tracy said, to basically hack the system, right? To get faster at what we're doing. Anyway, just some thoughts about that.
There was an interesting comment by Sam Altman, from ChatGPT, and he was asked what was the impact of people using words like please and thank you in the chat discussion.
Yeah.
And the takeaway was his comment was, please stop doing that because it costs us roughly $500 million worth of energy costs extra to process the please and thank yous.
Yeah.
He didn't say stop doing that. He says that's how much it costs, but he says it actually helps.
Pay us more. That's what he said. The underlying thing was there. We need to be paying more for your please than whatever.
Okay, I'm going to bring Danielle to talk because she wanted to share vision. I'm assuming from the SIL perspective. Lightness has its cost. Yes. Danielle, all yours.
Hi, I just got checked into my hotel room.
Good timing.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
You're good.
So ultimately, I think that the grander vision, I missed a little bit. I had to go for a while, but I agree with Anno. We're really concerned about the people, and making sure that AI is really benefiting what's going on for people in the workspace. And my personal vision, I think I posted in the chat, is it's really about making our industry smarter. And I know we talk about smart buildings a lot, but it's bigger than smart buildings. It's about smarter use of our resources. It's about smarter use of our money. It's about smarter use of our data, smarter decisions, smarter processes. I would say smarter people, but I think that that's trying to say that we want our people to be smarter, but we want to invite everybody. We want anyone to feel like they can be smarter without needing to go through the hoops of master's degrees or PhDs. I mean, AI enables anyone to truly be a smart person in a smart building. So I think that's my vision.
That's great. Smart, everything smarter, smarter everything.
Yes, smarter everything.
It's kind of interesting if you think about what she's saying a little bit in applied sense. You now can open up opportunities to people who maybe don't have the same level of formal education, who work in buildings, to be as equally valuable and smart about what they are doing or what's going on in the building when you have these kinds of tools available.
In fact, that's actually, Trace, that's interesting because that was one of the comments that Demis made from DeepMind, is that what Chat GPT did at the end of the day is enabled AI for everyone, basically, right? And to Danielle's point, right, it elevated everybody all at the same time, right? We all benefit from that leverage, and that was kind of my earlier point too about, yeah, all that's stupid. But that was kind of the point earlier about, and we're not even close to using those type of tools within the space and the environments that the buildings that we're in with the people that we use today. But yeah, that was an interesting point, Daniela, that ChatGPT just made everybody accessible. Where before it came along, it was all in a box, right? You had to be an expert, you had to be a software guy, you had to be able to use the tools. You got to be a wizard to be able to leverage the tools, and they just made it available to everybody.
I think that
One of
part
the-
of my vision as well is if we can make this community available virtually, and the people actually belong to the community, that the folks that are actually turning the tools are able to have their input. I always loved that when I was a energy automation consultant. The most valuable information I got was going for coffee with the guys who actually ran the building. It was bloody amazing what they told me, and how the building was supposed to operate, and the way it did operate was completely two scenarios. And a lot of times my claim to fame was merging those two things together into something that was a survival mode for the building. Most buildings that I saved 50% energy in, all I ever did was make them work close to the way they were intended, and basically get the operating staff to accept what had the design. And so that whole meshing process has to occur. And if we can do that virtually, and we can use AI to strengthen that, I think we could make great gains.
This is a fantastic list here, guys. And they're not all the same. They're kind of related to each other, and they kind of intersect, which is going to make this a really interesting month. So we have plug and play, open ecosystem, being tech-like, get the most efficiency from AI, removing all the barriers from between silos, BIT.
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 Oh, BE.
BEIT.
Got
Be it.
And collaboration, buildings as a communities, which resonates very well with making everything smarter, because in a way what we're saying is make that community smarter, right? Which means all of the aspects of that community with technology, and the building becomes smarter because the building is that community. Some powerful stuff here, guys.
Good question, Michael, in the chat. What does happen to it? But that's interesting. That's the one that we have to deal with, right?
Michelle, do you wanna chime in?
Sorry.
Michelle, I'll press that button and you can chime in.
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah, just I think the main question for me is what happens to all the existing installations, configurations, protocols? What do you do with them? Do you just tell everyone to yank everything out and put new things in?
No, you put a layer on top of everything, basically.
Yeah,
It's
I think that's
Simplistically.
really one of the biggest benefits of using some of these new tools is the ability to extend the life cycle of existing systems.
So are you referring to a platform that encompasses all of these, or what are we standardizing? The communication or the platform, or what exactly is it that we're standardizing or discussing here? Sorry, I just don't get it.
Yeah, maybe the whole the way to think about that, because I've been thinking about you posted that on chat, and I've been thinking about that. Maybe this will be sort of a call one of the weeks of this month talking about that, because what you're really
Okay.
saying is that we have to do something, right? And you're
Yeah,
using the word platform as the thing to do or the thing to build or whatever it is,
exactly.
which is somewhat similar to what Ken was saying about earlier in a conversation before we got on board. He was saying the same thing, and in the context of this sort of building this community, he was talking about it in the context of building it on some kind of platform. Right?
Yep.
Not the same as what you're saying, but not a million miles away. So that may be a way we can have a discussion about that in one of the weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. So with that, we're at the top of the hour, and we need to start to wrap this up. Thanks, Michelle, for joining us. Thanks, Kimon and Danielle as well.
Thank you.
And yeah, any other sort of quick closing comments from anyone? Steve, Tracy, Rick?
And one thought, building on something Anno said about learning new tools and a lot of this overcoming that. I think one of the biggest impediments to innovation in our space, when we're out selling, has been this learning curve associated with it. If we can simplify all this stuff, automate this, standardize it, a lot of that goes away and really opens the door up for innovation.
Cool.
Yep.
All
Yeah,
right,
my only-
guys. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, my only comment to Michelle, earlier question is, I think I'm thinking that the IBB may not be familiar with that, but that incorporates a lot of the concepts that would address his concerns, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Definitely.
I'll take a
All right.
look. Thank you.
All right, guys.
okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. See you
Have
next
a
week.
great week.